Hello guys, and welcome back to another interesting tutorial. So in today's video we're going to learn how to make this very beautiful dress. If that sounds like something you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let us get right into the video. So I've started off by rolling out the lines. I'm going to label them out so you know what we're working with. This is our bust point line, our under bust line, our waist line, and then this is our hip line. And this is going to be a full scale bodice. This is the shoulder line. So you want to take your measurement from your shoulder down to your hip line, and that is what we have here. Now we're starting off by marking the shoulder measurement divided by 2, and then from there we're going to come down by 1 inch and then come down again to create our armhole depth. And I'm going to mark that out and then rule it out just to create the armhole at that point. Next, I'm going to place my bust measurement divided by 4 there and then mark it out. That's going to serve as a guide to curve out the armhole. So I'm doing that now. I'm just going to curve this out. Next, because we're going to have a little turtleneck at the neckline, I'm just going in by 2.5 inches at that point. And then for the depth as well, I think I came down about 2.5 inches to 2 inches as well, because I do not want this to be too wide when we are trying to create our turtleneck. So I went ahead now to curve this out to just create our neckline at that point. Next, we're going to slant this from the neckline area down to our shoulder, our armhole. So this is what we have now. Now I'm just going to go ahead to start imputing my body measurements divided by 4. So because we're working with a mesh fabric for this tutorial, when you're adding your body measurements, you want to go ahead to take out 1 inch. So for instance, my waist measurement divided by 4 is 10, but I took out 1 inch and that made it 9 inches. So I hope you understand. Now I've gone ahead to mark out all my body measurements and I'm just going to curve them out to meet each other. So this is what we have. This is just going to be a plain bodice as we have it here. We don't have any dart for this as well. Now we want to go ahead to create that curve at the bottom part now. So guys, we lost some clips, but I basically went ahead to draft the back piece as well. So this is our back piece and I just came down from the back piece by half an inch. That is the only difference between the back and the front. So you can see I just cut it out. Now I'm going to show you how I created the curve at that bottom part since we lost the clip for the front piece. So I went ahead to place my tape at the hip area here and I marked out 3.5 inches here, and then I came in and I marked 1 inch. So I'm just going to place my tape there and mark 1 inch there. After doing so, we're going to come to the front part, the midpoint here, and we're also going to mark 1 inch at that part. Next, we're going to mark 3 inches upwards on this part, and then we're just going to create dotted lines to connect them to the midpoint here and to that other 1 inch we created at the opposite side. You want to create dotted lines so you get the exact shape you want. So this is what we have. We have about 6 inches out here, and then we have about 3.5 inches there. So we're going to come up by 3 inches here again, and then we're just going to create dotted lines to create the curve at the sides. So this is what we have and I hope you understand. Now for the back, we do not have any zipper allowance because we're working with a stretchy fabric, so it is not necessary, but we're going to slit the midpoint here all the way to this point, just so because we are going to have a turtleneck, there's a bit of space for us to wear the dress. So that is the only difference. I'm going to go ahead to cut out these curves we just created and we're going to move on to cut this on our fabric. So guys, these are the fabrics we're working with for this tutorial. So we're going to work with this is a mesh fabric, as you can see, and you can see that it has a lot of stretch on both sides, and this is just a silk fabric we're working with for this tutorial. So I'm cutting this out now, and I'm going to leave out 1/2 inch seam allowance at the shoulder area, the armhole area, the sides, as well as the bottom. This 1/2 inch is just for us to join it by. Remember, we took out 1 inch from our original body measurement. So guys, these are all the fabric pieces we've gone ahead to cut out. I also went ahead to cut out our sleeve, and this is just a basic long sleeve. If you'd like to learn how to draft a basic sleeve, I'll have the video linked up here or in the description box, so you can go check it out. So these are all the fabric pieces we went ahead to cut out, and now we just want to go ahead to start sewing. So this is the back piece, and we want to go ahead to create that slit I mentioned earlier. So I'm just holding everything together so it's equal, and we're just going to create a slit at the back. You're not going to slit this all through, so you just want to watch closely at what I'm doing right now. So guys, we've gone ahead to cut this out, and this is what we have. We're just creating this because we want to have ease when wearing this. Now we just want to go ahead to top stitch on this part and just fold it in with a piece of fabric. So I'm going to do that now and come back to start sewing. So this is what we have after doing so. I just took a piece of fabric and just stitched it and then flip it in and top stitch on that. So this is what we have. Next, what we want to do is we're going to go ahead to iron this down so everything stays in place for us to work. And when you're ironing, you want to go ahead to cover this up and do it on low heat so you don't burn the fabric. After which, I'm bringing in the second piece, and we're just going to align them together. We're aligning the front and the back piece together, making sure everything is aligned properly so we can start joining this by the shoulder. You want to go ahead to pin this down so it doesn't move, and then stitch the shoulders together by 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go ahead now to join them by the shoulders so we can fix our sleeve. If you have a cover stitch machine, this is going to be far easy for you to do. So guys, after sewing, this is what it is looking like. The shoulders are laying down nicely, as you can see, and the neckline, you can see, is very small and neat. You don't want this to be too wide because we're going to have turtleneck at that point. We're going to have a turtle neckline rather at that point. Now we want to go ahead to start fixing in our sleeve. So now we want to bring in the sleeve so we can attach this to the top. So we're going to create a notch at the midpoint of our sleeve so that we're going to use that as a guide to attach this equally. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to hold my sleeve together, making sure that everything is aligned properly to get the midpoint of the sleeve, and then I'm going to create a notch at the center of the sleeve, after which we're going to place the sleeve at the joining point of the top. So you want to make sure everything is aligned properly. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure that they're aligned properly, and we're going to pin this all the way across to the opposite sides. After pinning this down, we want to go ahead to stitch this along the sides by 1/2 inch all the way to the other side. We're going to go ahead to do that now for both sleeves so we can finish this up. So we've gone ahead to join the sleeves to the main bodice, as you can see, and this is what we have. Now we want to go ahead to close up the sides of the sleeve as well as the side of the bodice. So to do this, I'm just going to pin everything together to secure them in place. because we're going to stitch this by 1/2 inch all the way from the sleeve, connecting this to the bodice. So we're going to go ahead now to do so. So one thing you also want to take note of is while drafting the sleeve, we also took out that 1 inch I told you about for the bodies because of the stretch. So you want to go ahead to do that when you're taking out, when you're drafting your sleeve as well. You want to go ahead to take out 1 inch depending on the stretch of the fabric as well. So now I'm just going to go ahead to pin this. You can see that I'm holding the joinings for both sides so that everything is going to align properly. So I'm going to pin this all the way through from the sleeve area to the bodies so that we can go ahead to stitch this. Now after pinning everything down, you want to go ahead to stitch this from this point all the way to this point here that is going to connect it to the bodies. So we're going to stitch this by 1/2 inch, and then we're doing the same thing for the opposite side as well. So I'm going to do that now, and we're going to move on to the next step. After joining the sides for the sleeve as well as the bodies, this is what we have. Now after this step, you want to go ahead to work on your collar area, but I'm going to skip this step for now, and we're going to finish up the rest of the dress before doing that. Now we want to go ahead to attach this fabric to the lower part of our dress, and this is what we have. You can see I went ahead to fold the bottom part of the dress so that everything is looking nice at the bottom, and we have about 3 yards of fabric here. You can do 4 yards if you want it to be a bit gathered some more. And for the length, I took out 23 inches for my shoulder to hip line, and then the rest from the 23 inches all the way down is the full length of the dress. So the full length I'm working with is about 62 inches, so that this flows very well when wearing this. So this is what it's looking like. I hope you understand. So I went ahead to take out, because the fabric was by 60, I went ahead to take out the excess fabric we had at the top to make sure what we had after taking out 23 inches for the top part of our dress, what we had was enough for the full length of our dress. So I hope you understand. Now I'm going to run a loose stitch across this all the way to the end. So you want to run a loose stitch all the way to the end of this fabric. And one tip you want to take note of is when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have enough thread in your bobbin so that when you're doing this, you don't run out of thread. So you want to go ahead to run loose stitch all the way across so you can create gathers. So I brought back my dress so we know how much of the fabric we're going to gather. So I'm going to place my tape now at the bottom part, and I'm just going to measure this all the way across just so we know how much fabric we're going to gather this. And that is why I said you want to work with about 3 to 4 yards of fabric. To get 4 yards is more preferable to get a better result. So I'm just placing my tape all the way to the very end. You can see the way I'm moving with the tape just so I get everything correct. So this is what we have. We have about 30.5 inches, which is about 61 inches. So we want to go ahead to gather our fabric to that exact figure. So I'm going to go ahead to do that now. So guys, we've gone ahead to create the gathers. As you can see, one thing I also did was I went ahead to close up the sides. So you can see the joining here. I went ahead to close it up so that we can just pin this directly to the top part of our dress, and this is going to be far easier. So I went ahead, that was why I had to close up that side. So I'm bringing in the upper part right now, and we're going to place them right sides facing each other. So just watch closely at what I'm going to do so that we can start pinning them together in place for us to sew. So after pinning this, we're going to follow the shape we created at the top part to just stitch this all the way down. Now I'm done pinning this down, and I'm just going to flip this over to the right side just so you get an idea of what it should look like when you're done. So you can see that just with the pins alone, we already have that shape we created at the top part of the dress. So you can see that it's coming out already. So now we just want to go ahead to just take this to the machine to sew this down following the shape we have here. So guys, we're starting off sewing this at the side of the dress where we have the joining, and the joining for the side of the dress for the top part is matching up with the joining for the bottom part as well. So we're just going to go ahead to just start sewing this following that shape. So you want to watch closely at what we're doing here. So you can see how we're just sewing this all the way around. We're going to continue sewing this to the very end, and then we're going to work on our collar to finish up the dress. So I'm going to do that all the way, and then we're going to start working on our collar. Now to create our turtle neckline, what we want to do is from the back part here, I'm just placing my tape all the way to this point, and what I have there is about 2.75, and I'm just going to place that down and mark it out. So I'm going to mark that 2.75 inches we took out at that point here, as you see me doing right now, and that is going to serve as the back. So I'm just writing B there to signify that that is the back part. I'm also going to hold the front piece together. So I'm going to hold the front. You're just going to see how I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold them from the joining together like this equally, so we have it to be like this, and then I'm going to place my tape, and whatever I have there, we're also going to mark it out. So I'm going to take that is 4¼ and I'm just going to mark that at this point here, and I'm going to write F there. So that is the front part of the pattern. So from this front part, I'm going to come up by 1/2 inch and then curve this back to that line we have there. So this is what we have, and then on this part here, we're not going to do anything at the back part. We're just going to leave it as it is. And here I'm just slanting this. You can see that I'm not rolling it straight but slanted, and after which I'm going to mark 1.5 inches. You can do 1¼ depending on how wide you want your turtle neckline to be. So after marking out that 1.5 inches, I'm just going to use my ruler to rule them to meet each other. So that is it for the collar. Now I'm just going to cut this out so we can use this to cut out our fabric. Next, I'm just going to mark this front part so I know that part is going to be on fold, and then I'm going to bring in the fabric so we can start cutting this on our fabric. You can see I have it on fold, and I put that part there, the part that is going to be on fold at that point. Now we're just going to cut this out. You want to go ahead to add half an inch seam allowance at the top, the bottom, and at the sides. You can see that what I have there is not up to half an inch. It's because I decided I don't want it to be as wide as 1.5 inches, and so I just reduced what I was adding as the seam allowance. So this is what we have after cutting this out. You want to go ahead to cut out two pieces of this. One is going to serve as the lining piece and one is going to serve as the main fabric piece, which is what we have right now. So because I had to deliver this dress, I could not show you the full tutorial on how I stitched down the collar, but I just went ahead to stitch this on the sides and then attach this to our dress. So guys, this is the final result. If you enjoyed watching this video and you found it helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed already, and if you enjoy watching videos like this, you're also going to like watching this one up here, so you can go check it out, and I will see you guys on the next one.